Hello, my name is Rinon and today I wanted to have a bit of a chat with you about the upcoming addition to Final Fantasy XIV coming in patch 5.3, which I'm predicting is going to be out in early to mid-August-ish. What I'm talking about here are the Unreal Trials. For those of you who don't know or haven't been keeping up with official news sources recently, Unreal Trials were announced and teased in the previous live letter, and the first one, Shiva, is going to be releasing with the next patch, meaning that instead of one quote-unquote extreme primal next patch, we're going to be getting two. Firstly, we're going to be getting the story trial, and then we're going to be getting the Unreal Trial. Unreal Trials are a little bit different to what we've seen so far, because instead of being entirely new fights, they're going to take a similar train of thought to Ultimate encounters, and they're going to use battles that are already found in the game. They are new, adjusted versions of old trials, with mechanics that are designed to be challenging for level 80 players. The first Unreal Trial will be the Akafar Amphitheater, which is Shiva Extreme, so you can finish your Shiva Weekly and then you can go farm Shiva Weekly. Going forward, we can expect one or potentially two Unreal Trials per patch, and I'm anticipating that we're going to start off with the Realm Reborn Primals first, and likely we're just going to work through the list slowly but surely. We'll then move on to Heaven's Ward, maybe Stormblood eventually, maybe one day we'll see Shadowbringers fights brought back as Unreal fights as well. I'd be really excited to see especially fights like Titan Extreme reworked into Unreal Trials soon, because while we've seen Titan recently in the previous raid to Eden's Gate, I think the original Titan fight was an absolute masterclass of a test of fundamental player skills. It made sure you could dodge AoEs, made sure you could dodge AoEs really well, it made sure that your cooldowns and your healing were on point, it tested your ability to deal with animation based attacks rather than just relying on cast bars to see what was happening next, and overall it was just a really fun fight to prog. Honestly, I think a lot of the Realm Reborn Primals are very interesting conceptually, and I think the design philosophy of the Final Fantasy XIV team has changed quite a lot as the game has progressed and aged and grown, and being able to experience some of those old original fights properly once again is going to be really quite fun. There's going to be mechanics that you won't really see handled in nowadays as fights that you're going to have to go back and relearn. A good example of this is the ad control in Ramuh Extreme and the orb management. That isn't something you often have to do nowadays. They kind of touched upon it in the new Ramuh Savage fight, but it doesn't really handle it in quite the same way as the Extreme Primal did. Another one is Leviathan, where basically everything is trying to knock you off the arena constantly. And of course the Searing Wind on Ifrit and managing things like that. All of them have their very unique mechanics that are centralised to that fight, and I think they're going to be very fun to experience once again. And honestly, one thing I'd love more than anything is if they brought back the Odin fight, because I think that was an incredibly fun piece of combat in the game, and it would be really interesting, to me at least, if they re-explored it. More excitingly, I think we could potentially see more than just the original fight upscale to level 80 with higher damage values and HP and stuff like that. We could actually see an entirely new fight being made from the building blocks of the old fight, using things like the core mechanics, but maybe they're in a different order. Or maybe they're adding some new mechanics completely, or maybe they're pulling in mechanics from the Savage fights that are related to that piece of combat. That would completely throw off even the most experienced players and make them entirely new pieces of content to enjoy and progress through. This would be amazing if they did, because it would actually allow them to improve upon these original fights and craft something brand new for everyone to experience and enjoy. And honestly, if this is a success, one thing I'd really like to see is if they did this for mainline raids as well, because I've always said that I think that the Coils of Bahamut should definitely be synced up to level 80 at some point. Yes, please. One thing they did mention though that I think is quite controversial is the concept of this fight being a limited time availability, which is what Square Enix originally said was the plan for it when they announced it. I'm heavily against FOMO, or fear of missing out. It's a mechanic in video games. You're starting to see it more and more nowadays in things like gacha games or free-to-play games, and honestly it's really annoying to deal with, and especially in a game that charges a monthly subscription fee, I'm not really sure it has a place. I believe that once the dev resources are poured into a new piece of content like this, it should be available for players to explore and re-explore whenever they want. Especially with this fight releasing in an off patch where less players are likely to return to the game, I kind of feel it's a little bit disingenuous to dangle the idea of removing content in front of players to get them to immediately come back, when say they might wait until 5.4 to come back normally. There is one thing that could change my mind now. If further down the road they implemented something like an availability rotation, such as how Kolvatarov worked in Monster Hunter World, I could kind of understand and get behind it a little bit more though. Say for example, week 1 is Ifrit and Garuda Unreal, week 2 is Shiva and Odin Unreal, week 3 is Titan and Leviathan Unreal, and they just cycle on a week on week on week basis, and it cycles in availability constantly. There's always a few fights available, and the fights that aren't available will be back soon. That would be kind of interesting. I think it could spike the number of players taking an interest in the fights, even without notable rewards when they come back on the rotation. And I think it means that it keeps those content relevant and coming back and not taken away from the players, basically. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is the following quote: "Complete Unreal Trials to earn the chance to play the Faux Hallows minigame once per week." We can take a few different things from this. Firstly, this kind of implies that there are negligible or even potentially no rewards from completing the Unreal fight itself. It definitely seems implied, or at least possible, that the only thing you're going to get from completing that encounter is going to be weekly access to the Faux Hallows minigame. If this is true, this adds another thing on the checklist of weekly tasks and clears that need to be done. You get your Faux Hallow weekly, you do your Savage weekly, you do your 24-man weekly, etc, etc, etc. But it also means that aside from that once per week clear, there isn't really very much point in doing the Unreal trial again. I think that this definitely lowers the replayability of the content, because one of the main attracting factors, at least to me and probably for a lot of players, that kept them going into Extreme Primals again and again and again, was the fact that there are not only gear upgrades available that they could use to gear, say, alt classes, but there was also a mount available, and a lot of players, including myself multiple times, would just farm the primal again and again, collect 99 totems in order to get their mount. What this also means is that we are going to be getting a new minigame with new rewards, the Faux Hallow. Could it be something akin to Wondrous Tales where you collect stamps? Maybe they're going to add little challenges as like stamp collectibles. Say instead of having to do different fights to complete your Wondrous Tales, in order to complete your Faux Hallow you have to say clear the fight with a weird composition, or you have to clear the fight with one tank, or you have to complete a hidden mechanic within the encounter or something like that in order to earn stamps, and then you can try and get a line in order to earn special rewards. That could be a potential thing. Maybe it will be something entirely new. It could also be like the lottery with a percentage factor of winning akin to the turn-ins for the Ishgardian restoration. And honestly, more importantly than that, what kind of rewards are we going to get from it? I don't really see us getting new gear from it, but we could get something like new minions, we could get new glamour, which would be amazing. What kind of rewards do you think that we could get from the Unreal Trials, and more importantly, what kind of rewards would you like to get from the Unreal Trials? Leave a comment, I'd love to hear what you think. One thing I would say that you can do to prepare for Shiva Unreal when it launches in patch 5.3 would be to go into Shiva Extreme during this downtime while we still have a few weeks without anything new to do. Maybe just go in on Sync Solo and see the mechanics of the fight, get used to the mechanics, because while we may not be getting the same fight once again, those mechanics are definitely coming back in some form or another. We're definitely going to see the different weapons with the different forms, there's definitely going to be a 270-degree bow cleave, things like that. I think if you get a rough understanding of the encounter and kind of know what the mechanics do, when we see the Unreal Trial coming out, you're going to have a much easier time with it. I'm really curious to see how everything connects and ties into one another, and we can expect to hear more about it at the live letter on July 22nd, which at the time of recording is in about 2 weeks' time. We're also going to find out a little bit more about the new installments to the story of the game, to the near collaboration 24-man raid, to the dungeon and to the primals in the game, as well as to the new relic step and the crafting editions, so look forward to that. I'll make sure to cover it all on the channel. Hopefully you found this a little bit interesting. I try to do it a little less scripted than some of my guide content and just talk into the mic for a little while. So if you like that, I'd absolutely love it if you'd leave a sub and let me know that you liked it so that I know to do this kind of stuff more. So thank you very much for watching and have an absolutely wonderful day.